My hands were shaking. Not from excitement like they should have been, but from a quiet fear that made my chest feel tight. This was it. My big moment. The school's art showcase was in full swing, and my portfolio, my heart poured onto every page, lay open on the easel. I had spent months on these drawings, these paintings, each one a piece of me, a secret world nobody else usually saw. I took a deep breath, trying to ignore the buzzing crowd, the way my voice always got small when I had to speak in front of people. I just wanted my art to speak for me. And this one, I started, pointing to a vivid landscape, a dreamscape really, filled with colors only my mind could create, is about finding light in the darkest places. My voice was soft, barely a whisper, but I hoped people were listening, really seeing. A harsh laugh cut through the gentle hum of the room. It was loud, ugly, and way too close. My stomach clenched. I didn't even need to look to know who it was. Brock Holloway. His shadow fell over my work, chilling me more than any winter wind. I could smell the faint scent of sweat and cheap cologne that always followed him. "Look at this garbage," he sneered, his voice booming for everyone to hear. He picked up one of my favorite pieces, a charcoal sketch of a girl with stars in her eyes, a reflection of how I felt sometimes when I was lost in my own thoughts. What even is this? More of Nia's sad little dreams? Guess someone needs a reality check. My cheeks burned. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I wanted to disappear. But I stood frozen, my eyes locked on his sneering face. He was the king of Northwood High, the star football player, and I was just Nia. Quiet, artistic Nia. His cruel words, his laughter, always made me feel small, like I was shrinking right out of existence. Then he did something that made my breath catch in my throat. He didn't just laugh. He didn't just talk. He took the black marker he'd been twirling in his hand, the kind you use for signing footballs, and he dragged it right across the face of the girl in my drawing. A thick, ugly black line, like a scar, ruining her starry eyes, defacing her dream. Then another line, slashing across the landscape. My world, my light, gone in two swift, brutal strokes. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Some kids snickered. Others looked away, uncomfortable, but nobody said anything. Nobody ever did. I felt a hot, angry flush spread through me, mixed with a chilling shame. My art, my soul, broken, ruined, in front of everyone. I could feel tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of Brock. My vision blurred, and the ruined drawings seemed to mock me. This wasn't just about a few pictures. It was about everything. It was about me being seen, really seen, and then crushed. Hey, my friend, hope you're doing well. Drop a comment and let me know how you're feeling about this story so far and where you are watching from. Some stories are too close to my heart to share on YouTube. I send those, along with little life lessons and surprises, to my email circle. If you'd like to be part of it, you can join with the link in the description. The moment stretched, thick with Brock's laugh and my own choking silence. I squeezed my hands into fists, my nails digging into my palms. This was my life. Always on the outside, always watching, always feeling like I had to hide the real me, the part that lived for colors and shapes and quiet whispers of imagination. My mom always told me to be careful, to keep my head down, to let people think what they wanted. It was safer that way. We had our own little world, my mom and me and a few others who protected us. People didn't need to know everything. But what if staying quiet wasn't safe? What if it just made me a bigger target? Brock finally shoved the defaced portfolio back onto the easel. Maybe try drawing something people actually want to see, Nia, he said, his voice dripping with fake pity. He gave me a mocking smile, then clapped one of his football buddies on the back and walked off, leaving a trail of laughter behind him. I stood there, staring at the ruined art. My chest ached with a pain deeper than anything a cut or bruise could give. It felt like he had reached inside and ripped something vital out of me. All those hours, all those feelings, all that hope, gone. Just like that. The other students slowly started to move away, leaving me alone with my broken dreams. A few gave me sympathetic glances, but no one stopped. No one offered help. It was just me and the quiet hum of the room, which now felt deafening. I thought about the hundreds of times I'd faced Brock's taunts. His whispers in the halls, his trips in the cafeteria, the way he'd mock my clothes or my quiet nature. I always just took it. I always just retreated deeper into my sketchbooks, my art becoming my shield. But now he had smashed that shield. He had to face the very thing that made me me. And suddenly, something snapped inside me. The tears I had fought so hard to hold back didn't come. Instead, a cold, hard anger started to bloom. A quiet fury simmering deep in my gut. My mom always told me to be gentle, to be kind, to always seek the path of peace. And I had for 17 years. But what had peace gotten me today? More pain, more humiliation. I picked up my portfolio, holding it gently, as if the ruined pages might hurt even more if I squeezed too hard. My fingers traced the ugly black marks, and a fierce resolve solidified in my heart. This wasn't okay. I wasn't okay with this anymore. The world my mom and I had built, meant to keep me safe and normal, felt like a cage. And Brock, he had just rattled the bars. My mind raced. All the times I'd been told to keep a low profile, to never draw attention, to protect our private life. To protect her private life. But right now, standing in the middle of this empty, echoing room, with my ruined art and my shattered pride, all I felt was a desperate need to protect my own life. To protect the art that was part of my soul. My hand slipped into my pocket and found my phone. My fingers flew open the contacts list. There was only one person who could truly understand, who had the power to make this stop. My thumb hovered over a name. A simple name, just a first name. No last name, no special emoji. Just Robin. I pressed send. The message was just 3 words. I need you. A shiver went down my spine, not from fear, but from the sudden, powerful knowledge that everything was about to change. I had always been the quiet girl, the secret sister, the one no one knew about. But not anymore. Not after this. Brock Holloway had no idea who he had just messed with. He had no idea what kind of fire he had just lit. And he definitely had no idea who Robin really was. My phone buzzed almost right away. My heart jumped. It wasn't a call, just a quick message on it. Be there soon. That was it. No questions, no long messages. Just Robin. Always to the point, always there when it mattered. A shaky breath left my lungs, a mix of relief and a whole new kind of fear. I had crossed a line, one my mom had always told me to guard with my life, a silent agreement we'd held for years. I walked home in a daze, the defaced portfolio clutched to my chest like a wounded animal. The black marker streaks felt like they were branded onto my skin, a constant reminder of the public shame. When I pushed open the front door of our small house, the warm, comforting smell of dinner, rice, and peas, my favorite, hit me, but I felt no comfort. Only a heavy sense of dread. Nia? Baby, is that you? Mom's voice came from the kitchen, warm and humming, full of the usual evening peace. I tried to act normal, to hide the portfolio behind my back, to wipe the raw pain from my face. But she walked out, wiping her hands on her apron, and her sharp mom eyes found mine instantly. Her smile was bright, then it faded like a dying flame when she saw my face, saw the unshed tears, the crumpled posture. Her eyes, usually so full of gentle worry, sharpened into something protective and deep. "What happened, sweet pea?" she asked, her voice losing its lightness. My voice caught, thick with shame. I couldn't speak, just held out the portfolio. Mom's soft hands took it, her fingers tracing the ugly black lines. I watched her face tighten, saw her jaw clench. Mom never truly got angry. She got quiet, and her quiet was always scarier, a deep stillness that promised a storm beneath. "Oh, Nia," she whispered, her voice barely audible, laced with a familiar heartache. "Who did this?" "Brock," I choked out, the name tasting like ash on my tongue, bitter and sharp. She closed her eyes for a moment, a slow, deep breath filling her chest, a silent plea to some higher power. "I told you, baby. Keep your head down. Don't cause trouble. People like that, they'll find any reason. They don't need a big one, just a small crack in your armor." Her words, meant to comfort, just made the quiet fury inside me burn hotter. But Mom, he ruined it. My art. My soul. I can't just keep letting him do this. She opened her eyes, and they were sad. So sad, reflecting a lifetime of protecting me. I know, sweet pea. I know. She put the portfolio down gently on the coffee table, her gaze fixed on the ruined drawings, her face etched with a pain that mirrored mine. Is that why you called her? My stomach dropped, a cold rush. You know? I whispered, feeling suddenly guilty, like I had betrayed her trust. I know you called Robin, she said, her voice soft but firm, a statement of fact, not an accusation. You haven't called her for help since that time in middle school, when those girls were picking on you for your accent, making fun of your Barbadian lilt. You promised you'd only call for emergencies. This is an emergency, isn't it? Her gaze was unwavering, searching mine for the truth. I nodded, tears finally starting to prick my eyes, blurring the edges of the room. He crossed a line, Mom. It wasn't just words anymore. It was like he was trying to erase me. To erase everything I love about myself. Mom came over and wrapped me in a tight hug, pulling me close to her familiar warmth. She smelled like spices and home, a scent that usually brought me peace, but today felt fragile. I know, baby. I saw it in your face. The look in your eyes. I haven't seen that since. She didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what she meant. Since we left Barbados, since we came here for a fresh start, a quiet life, a place to keep our secret safe from the hungry eyes of the world. Our secret. It wasn't just my secret, it was ours. Robin was Mom's first daughter, my older half-sister. Mom had raised Robin alone for years before I came along, before the fame. With Robin's star rising, Mom decided to move us to America, seeking a quieter life for me, away from the relentless glare that followed Robin. Robin had made it bigger than anyone could have dreamed. But with fame came a constant hunger from the media, a demand for family details. Mom, with Robin's help, had built a strong wall around me, a silent promise that I would get to be just Nia, a normal kid. No fancy private schools, no bodyguards, just Northwood High and our little house. Robin always sent money, but we lived simply. It was the only way to keep me under the radar, to protect the quiet life we cherished. I remembered one time, years ago, when Robin had come to visit. She dressed down, a baseball cap pulled low, dark glasses hiding her famous eyes. We spent a whole day just walking through a quiet park, eating ice cream, like any other sisters. Nobody recognized her. She had held my hand, small and warm in hers, and told me, Nia, you get to have a real life. Don't let anyone take that from you. Don't let anyone make you feel small. But if they ever do, if it ever gets too much, you call me. No matter what. This is your life to live, and no one gets to break your spirit. That promise had been my ultimate shield, but one I was forbidden to use unless it was truly an emergency. Now, I had used it. The weight of that decision pressed on me. The next day at school was a blur of whispers and stolen glances. Everyone knew about the art showcase. Brock walked the halls like he'd won the Super Bowl, a smug smirk plastered on his face, his football buddies laughing a little too loud whenever I passed. Their stares felt like physical jabs. I felt like I wore a bright target, a public exhibit of my humiliation. Every corner felt like a trap. During lunch, I sat alone, picking at my food, trying to make myself invisible. A shadow fell over my table. I braced myself, my muscles tightening, expecting Brock. But it was Maya, a girl from my art class. She had kind eyes and always complimented my work with genuine interest. I actually liked her. She was one of the few who didn't just ignore me. Nia, hey, she said, her voice soft and caring. She sat down across from me, her tray clattering a little. I saw what happened yesterday. That was awful. I'm so sorry. Nobody should have to deal with that. A flicker of warmth, small but real, spread through me. Someone actually cared, genuinely. Thanks, Maya, I mumbled, looking down at my tray, still unused to open kindness. Seriously, Brock is such a jerk, she went on, her brow furrowed in sympathy. Your art was beautiful. Everyone thought so. He's always like that, you know? Picks on anyone who's different. She paused, then leaned in a little, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Are you okay? Did you tell anyone? Did the principal do anything?" Mom's warnings about trust and secrecy echoed, but Maya's genuine concern felt like a lifeline. I wanted to trust her. She was the closest thing I had to a friend, someone who saw more than just quiet Nia. I told my mom, I said quietly, feeling a rush of bravery and vulnerability. And someone else. Someone who can really help. Someone who won't let him get away with it. Maya's eyes widened a tiny bit, a flash of something quickly hidden. "Oh? Like a family member?" she asked, a little too casually, her gaze lingering. "Someone who can actually do something powerful?" "Yeah," I said, feeling a tiny spark of hope, a fragile sense of validation. Maybe telling Maya wouldn't be so bad. Maybe she really did care. "My older sister." Wow, Maya breathed, her gaze a little too fixed, a little too curious, but she quickly masked it with a bright smile. "That's great, Nia. I really hope she can make things right. You deserve better, and your art definitely deserves better." Her words, the simple kindness, felt like a warm blanket in the coldness of the cafeteria. I felt a tiny bit lighter, a little less alone, and a surge of gratitude for her friendship. I actually started to believe things might get better, that I wasn't completely isolated in this cruel school. But later that afternoon, during our free period, my fragile hope shattered. I saw Maya whispering intensely with Sarah, one of Brock's close friends, near the lockers. As I walked past, their eyes flicked to me. They both glanced my way, then quickly looked away, giggling. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. No, it couldn't be. Maya wouldn't. She seemed so nice. As I walked closer, pretending to look for a book, I heard Sarah's voice a little too loud, dripping with fake sweetness. "Oh, look, it's the quiet artist. Heard her big sister is coming to save the day. Bet she's some big shot, huh? Maybe even a lawyer or something really important." Sarah winked at Maya, who just laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. The words hit me like a physical blow, sharper than any of Brock's taunts. Not because they knew Robin was coming, they didn't know who Robin was, but because Maya had told them. Maya, who had shown me kindness, had taken my hopeful secret and turned it into gossip, into another reason for ridicule. The knot in my stomach turned to a heavy stone, dragging me down. My eyes found Maya's across the crowded hallway. Her smile faltered, her face paling slightly as she realized I had heard. She quickly looked down, pretending to fix her hair, avoiding my gaze completely. The betrayal was like a fresh cut, deeper than Brock's marker on my art, more painful than any public humiliation. It wasn't just Brock who made me feel small. It was everyone. Even the ones who pretended to be on my side. The quiet fury that had begun to simmer now flared into an inferno, mixed with profound sadness. Nausea washed over me. My stomach churned, my carefully built hope crumbling into dust, leaving behind a bitter ache. It was confirmed. I truly was alone, facing a world determined to keep me down. Alone except for Robin. And Robin wasn't just coming for Brock anymore. She was coming for this whole world that wanted to keep me small, silent. My sister's plane was probably already in the air. The thought filled me with dread and a fierce anticipation. The storm was coming, and I was finally ready. The cold knot in my stomach tightened, a heavy stone dragging me down. Maya, my only flicker of light, had snuffed herself out. It wasn't just Brock who wanted me small and silent. It was everyone. Even the ones who pretended to be on my side. The quiet fury that had begun to simmer now flared into an inferno, mixed with profound sadness. Nausea washed over me. My stomach churned, my carefully built hope crumbling into dust, leaving behind a bitter ache. It was confirmed. I truly was alone, facing a world determined to keep me down. Alone except for Robin. And Robin wasn't just coming for Brock anymore. She was coming for this whole world that wanted to keep me small, silent. My sister's plane was probably already in the air. The thought filled me with dread and a fierce anticipation. The storm was coming, and I was finally ready. The rest of that day at school was a blur of hostile whispers and quick, darting glances. Every time I walked down a hall, I could feel eyes on me, judging. It was like everyone knew my secret, or at least a distorted version of it. That I had a powerful sister coming to rescue me. They probably thought I was weak, a spoiled child needing someone else to fight my battles. The idea made my teeth clench. I wasn't weak. I was just quiet. And that quiet had been broken. During my last class, art, the only place I usually felt safe, I found myself unable to focus. My sketchbook lay open, a blank page mocking me. The colors in my art kit seemed dull, lifeless. I kept seeing Brock's smug face, Maya's fake smile. It was suffocating. "Hey, Nia." A soft voice pulled me from my thoughts. It was Leo, a guy from my art class who usually kept to himself even more than I did. He had messy brown hair that always fell into his eyes and a quiet intensity when he drew. He was really good, specializing in detailed comic book art. We never really talked much, just shared quiet nods across the room. I looked up surprised. "Hey, Leo." He sat down on the stool next to me, picking up a stray pencil. He didn't look at me directly, but at my blank page. "Rough day, huh?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. I shrugged, a lump in my throat. I couldn't even pretend. Something like that. He was quiet for a moment, just twirling the pencil. "I saw what happened yesterday with Brock," he said, still not looking at me. "And, well, I overheard some stuff in the hall today. About your sister. And Maya." My face burned. I waited for the pity, the judgment, the gossip. But it didn't come. Instead, Leo finally looked at me, his eyes earnest and a little sad. "It really sucks, Nia. What Brock did. And what Maya did. Your art is amazing. Seriously. It's so full of life." He paused, then added, "It takes a lot of guts to put something like that out there. To be so open." His words hit me differently than Maya's had. There was no hidden agenda, no false sweetness. Just simple honesty. I felt a strange warmth spread through me, like a tiny crack opening in the ice around my heart. "Thanks, Leo," I managed, my voice a little shaky. "Don't let them get to you," he continued, still quiet but firm. "Seriously. Your work is powerful. Don't ever stop drawing." He offered me a small, encouraging smile. It wasn't a pitying smile or a "I feel bad for you" smile. It was a "I believe in you" smile. And for the first time in days, I felt a tiny spark of genuine connection. The bell rang, cutting our conversation short. He gave me another quick nod before heading out, leaving me with a small sense of peace mixed with the lingering bitterness. His words didn't fix everything, but they were a soft hand in the darkness. After school, Mom was waiting for me in the car, her face tight with worry. The principal called me. She said the moment I got in. "He said you were upset. Said Brock was spoken to again. Like that does anything." She snorted, a rare flash of anger from her usually calm self. "I told him about the extent of the bullying, about the damage to your portfolio. He just kept saying they handle these matters internally. Like this is internal." Her frustration mirrored mine. It cemented the feeling that no one here was truly listening, truly cared enough to stop it. "It's fine, Mom," I said, though my voice was flat. "Robin's coming. She'll handle it." The finality in my own voice surprised me. This wasn't just about getting Brock in trouble anymore. This was about changing everything. The next morning, the air at Northwood High felt thick, buzzing with a strange, nervous energy. Whispers followed me like shadows. "Did you hear? Her sister's coming. Who is she anyway?" The questions were like tiny pricks against my skin. Brock, usually swaggering, looked a little less confident, though he still managed to smirk when he caught my eye. His friends looked at him with a mix of awe and fear, like he was a ticking bomb they'd placed. During first period, history, I saw Brock hunched over his phone under his desk, his brow furrowed. He was arguing with someone through text, his thumbs flying. Then he looked up, catching sight of me. His eyes, usually full of arrogant challenge, held a flicker of something else, a fleeting moment of pure, unadulterated stress. He quickly masked it with a sneer, but I saw it. It was like looking behind the curtain, a glimpse of the real Brock, not just the bully. He wasn't just mean for fun, he was driven by something else. Pressure, maybe? From his own world? The thought made a tiny knot of confusion form in my chest. It didn't excuse anything he did, but it made him seem, for a second, less like a cartoon villain and more like a real, messed up person. The school day crawled by, each minute stretching into an hour. Lunch was a spectacle. Everyone watched me, then watched the doors as if expecting a parade. I sat alone, picking at my food, feeling the heat of their curious stares. I saw Maya at another table, avoiding my gaze completely, whispering intensely with Sarah. The betrayal still stung, a fresh wound. As the final bell neared, the energy in the school spiked. People were checking their phones, rushing to windows, forming small groups in the hallways, all craning their necks towards the faculty parking lot. The rumors had become a full-blown tornado. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was happening. I felt a cold dread, but also a fierce, burning resolve. This was it. No turning back. I had sent that text, and now the world was about to change. Not just my world, but this whole school's world. I walked towards the main entrance, my legs feeling heavy but my gaze fixed. Students parted around me, their faces a mixture of excitement and fear. I could hear distant shouts, then a growing rumble of noise. Then, through the tall glass doors, I saw it. A sleek, black SUV, shinier than anything I'd ever seen, gliding silently into the faculty parking lot. It pulled up slowly, almost majestically. A hush fell over the crowd of students pressed against the windows. Even the teachers looked stunned. The driver, a big man with dark glasses, stepped out first and opened the back door. My breath hitched. And then she emerged. My sister, Robin. She was wearing a simple, dark outfit, sunglasses covering her eyes. But even dressed down, she was a supernova. The crowd gasped. Murmurs exploded into a roar, a frantic wave of shouts and camera flashes. Phones were everywhere, held aloft like torches. Robin Fenty, the Robin Fenty, stood there, calm and powerful. She scanned the buzzing crowd, her face unreadable behind the dark lenses. Then, her gaze found mine through the glass, and she gave me the smallest, most knowing nod. It was a silent promise, I'm here. My fear didn't vanish, but something stronger rose to meet it. My quietness had been a shield, then a prison. Now, with Robin here, I felt a new kind of power, a power that wasn't about loudness or fame, but about truth, about standing up. She waited. For me. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the heavy main doors, stepping out into the roaring, chaotic world of Northwood High. The flashes of 1,000 phone cameras exploded around me, blinding me for a second. The screams were deafening. Robin reached out, her hand finding mine, strong and warm, a solid anchor in the storm. We walked side by side, straight towards the principal's office, past the gaping faces of my classmates, past the stunned teachers, past Brock, whose jaw had dropped so low it looked like it might unhinge. His face was pure white. He looked utterly, completely broken. His eyes met mine for a fleeting second. I saw the fear, the confusion, the sudden, terrible understanding. And in that moment, I realized he wasn't just a bully. He was a kid, just like me, caught up in something too big for him. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was my voice, finally found. What mattered was the storm, finally here. I squeezed Robin's hand, feeling the strength flow from her, and I knew, irrevocably, that this was just the beginning. The world had tried to make me small, but I was about to show them exactly how big I could be. I squeezed Robin's hand, feeling the strength flow from her, and I knew, irrevocably, that this was just the beginning. The world had tried to make me small, but I was about to show them exactly how big I could be. The roar of the crowd faded as Robin and I stepped through the double doors into the principal's outer office. My mom was already there, standing beside Mrs. Jenkins, the principal's secretary, her arms crossed tight. Principal Hayes, a thin man who always looked like he was trying to hide, was halfway out of his inner office, his face a mixture of shock and fake politeness. "Miss Fenty," he stammered, his eyes wide as he took in Robin. He quickly straightened his tie, looking completely flustered. "Welcome to Northwood High. Please come in. Mrs. Campbell, so glad you could join us." He nodded nervously at my mom. Robin squeezed my hand once more before letting go. Her sunglasses were still on, making her look even more unshakable. "Thank you, Principal Hayes," she said, her voice calm but clear, cutting through the thick air. "It seems my sister has been having some issues here." We walked into his office. It was small, with stacks of papers everywhere. Mom gave me a quick, worried look, then sat down, her back straight. Robin sat next to her, gesturing for me to sit on her other side. Principal Hayes practically dove into his own seat, clearing his throat. "Nia, it's good to see you," he began, trying to sound kind. "We've already had a talk with Brock Holloway about the incident with your artwork. He's very sorry, of course. We've issued him a stern warning, and he'll be suspended for 3 days." My stomach clenched. 3 days? That was it? After everything? It felt like a tiny band-aid on a huge cut. I glanced at Robin. Her face was still unreadable behind the dark lenses, but I could feel the change in the air, like a storm cloud gathering. "A warning in 3 days?" Robin asked, her voice still quiet, but with an edge I knew. It was the voice she used when she meant business. "Principal, my sister's portfolio, her hard work, was destroyed. This wasn't just a playground spat. This was repeated, targeted harassment that led to the public humiliation of a child and the defacing of her property." Mom spoke up then, her voice shaking a little. "He's been doing this for months, Principal," taunting her, making her feel small. He stole her confidence. And the school did nothing, no matter how many times I called. Principal Hayes squirmed. "Mrs. Campbell, we assure you, we take these matters very seriously. Brock has been counseled. We are also considering additional consequences, perhaps a school service project." He trailed off, looking at Robin, clearly hoping this would be enough. This felt like a false ending, like they wanted to sweep everything under the rug with a quick apology and a slap on the wrist. I couldn't stay quiet. My voice came out, surprisingly strong. "It wasn't just my art, Principal. He made me feel like I didn't matter. Like my quietness was a weakness for him to pick on." My hands were shaking, but I kept my gaze steady on him. "And Maya, my best friend, she helped him." The words stung as I said them. Robin put a comforting hand on my knee. "Nia has been through a lot. And frankly, a 3-day suspension doesn't address the core issue here, Principal. It certainly doesn't help Nia feel safe or empowered again." She paused, then took off her sunglasses, her eyes sharp and focused. "We have reason to believe this isn't an isolated incident with Mr. Holloway. That there's a pattern of behavior, not just with Nia, but possibly with other students who might be too afraid to speak up." Principal Hayes' face went pale. "A pattern? What are you implying?" he asked, his voice suddenly weaker. "I'm implying," Robin said, leaning forward slightly, "that my team has been doing their homework. We have gathered some information. And if the school truly wants to address bullying, it needs to do more than just send a kid home for a few days." She glanced at me. "Nia deserves to feel heard. And this school needs to show its students that a safe environment isn't just a promise, it's a reality." Just then, there was a knock on the office door. Mrs. Jenkins poked her head in, looking even more flustered than before. "Principal Hayes, Brock Holloway's parents are here. And there are reporters outside. A lot of them." A cold dread spread through me. Reporters? This was getting out of hand fast. My eyes darted to Robin, but she remained calm, a slight tilt to her head. Principal Hayes groaned, running a hand over his thinning hair. "Send them in, Mrs. Jenkins." Brock's dad, Mr. Holloway, strode into the office like he owned it. He was a big man, in a fancy suit, his face red with anger. Mrs. Holloway, a thin woman with a pinched expression, followed close behind him, looking terrified. I recognized Mr. Holloway from local news. He was a big shot in the city, always at events. This must have been the pressure Brock was under. "Principal Hayes," Mr. Holloway boomed, ignoring Robin and my mom entirely. "What is this circus? My son is being suspended because some girl's feelings got hurt? And now the media is here? You assured me this would be handled discreetly." He finally looked at Robin, his eyes narrowing in confusion, then widening in shock. "Wait a minute, you're..." Robin cut him off, her voice still even. "Robin Fenty." And this is my sister Nia. Mr. Holloway's face went from red to purple. So, this is what this is about. You're trying to use your celebrity to ruin my son's future over a childish prank. He pointed a finger at me. This girl is clearly just looking for attention. My cheeks burned. I wanted to disappear. But then Robin squeezed my hand again, subtly, and her voice was a steel rod. Mr. Holloway, defacing someone's art and repeatedly harassing them is not a childish prank. It is bullying. And what we want is not attention for Nia, but accountability and real change. Not just for my sister, but for any other student Brock Holloway might have targeted. Mrs. Holloway gasped. Mr. Holloway scoffed. Other students? What are you talking about? My son is a good boy. He's under a lot of pressure, yes, but he would never. We have reports, Mr. Holloway, Robin stated simply, of similar incidents. Things that have been swept under the rug. She looked directly at Principal Hayes, then back at Mr. Holloway. Perhaps a public forum is necessary. Not just for punishment, but for education. For a real conversation about empathy and respect in this school community. And to make sure that no other child has to go through what Nia has endured. Principal Hayes swallowed hard, clearly caught between the powerful Holloway family and Robin's formidable resolve. Mr. Holloway started to object, his voice rising, but Robin held up a hand. This isn't just about Brock's future, Mr. Holloway, she said, her voice quiet but piercing. It's about the future of every student here. And Nia, she's ready to speak her truth. Not to seek revenge, but to start a real conversation. The room fell silent, thick with unspoken threats and rising tension. Mr. Holloway's face was a mask of fury, but he knew he was trapped. He could fight Robin, but he couldn't fight a global superstar with reports and the media waiting outside. The false resolution was utterly shattered. This was no longer just about Brock's suspension. It was about something far, far bigger. As the meeting finally wrapped up, with Principal Hayes reluctantly agreeing to an all-school assembly the next day, a sense of mounting dread settled over me. We had won this round, but the real fight was just beginning. Walking out of the principal's office, the hallway was strangely empty, everyone outside. I saw Leo standing near the stairwell, trying to look like he wasn't waiting. When our eyes met, he gave me a small, worried nod. He wasn't looking at Robin or the buzzing outside. He was looking at me. A silent question, a shared understanding of the storm that was now truly here. I gave him a tiny, almost imperceptible nod back. This was terrifying. But I wasn't alone. And for the first time, I felt ready to truly fight. The next morning felt thick, heavy with expectation. My stomach churned, a mix of fear and a strange new kind of strength. Robin had woken me early, not with a loud alarm, but with soft steps and the smell of fruit and coffee. She helped me pick out an outfit, something simple but neat. Today, she'd said, her eyes gentle, you just need to be you. But strong. Walking into Northwood High, the air buzzed even more than the day before. Kids stared, not just at Robin, who was still wearing sunglasses indoors, but at me. I kept my head high, trying to copy her calm. My mom walked beside me too, her hand linked with mine, a silent anchor. We passed Leo by the lockers. He wasn't with his usual group. He was alone, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Our eyes met, and he gave me a weak smile, then nodded towards the assembly hall doors. Good luck, Nia, he mumbled, his voice tight. You got this. I felt a small flutter in my chest. Even with everything, Leo was still there. He believed in me. It was a tiny spark of warmth in the cold fear of the day. For a moment, it felt like maybe, just maybe, things could start to be okay. That tiny hope, I realize now, was the last flicker before the light went out completely. The assembly hall was packed. Every single student, every teacher seemed to be there. Principal Hayes was on stage, looking even more pale than yesterday. Brock was in the front row, between his parents, his jaw set, avoiding my gaze. I could feel his anger like a hot wave. Maya was a few rows behind him, her head down, lost in the crowd. I wanted to look at her, to understand, but I couldn't. Not yet. Robin led me to the stage. My mom sat in the front row, right below us. The microphone felt cold in my hand. I looked out at all the faces, a sea of whispers and curious eyes. This was it. This was my chance. Principal Hayes cleared his throat. Students, faculty, parents, he began, his voice shaky. We are here today to address a very serious matter: bullying, and to ensure that Northwood High is a safe and welcoming place for all. He went on, using big words, talking about school policy and consequences. It all sounded hollow. Then he turned to me. Nia Campbell will share her experience with us. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked at Robin. She gave me a tiny, encouraging nod. I took a deep breath, clutching the edges of my speech. It was simple, just a few words about how art made me feel, how important it was, and how much it hurt when someone tried to take that away. My art is my voice, I started. My voice barely a whisper, but the microphone carried it. It's how I show the world who I am. And when someone tries to erase that, it feels like they're trying to erase me. I talked about how scary it was to be quiet, how easy it was for others to pick on that. I could feel tears welling up, but I pushed them back. I had to be strong. As I spoke, a large screen behind me, usually used for announcements, flickered to life. It was supposed to show some of my recovered artwork, images I'd saved from my phone. But instead, a different image popped up. A text message. My breath caught. It was a screenshot of a conversation. My eyes scanned the words, trying to make sense of them. Asterisk Brock asterisk, okay, but how do I get to her? She's always with that stupid sketchbook. Asterisk Maya asterisk, don't worry, I know how to get her to show it. The talent showcase. She'll put her best one out then, the one she spends all her time on. Make a big show of it. She'll hate that. Asterisk Brock asterisk, you sure? She'll lose it. Asterisk Maya asterisk, exactly. It's the only way to get her to react. Plus, her mom won't be able to ignore it then. Maybe she'll finally get some real attention. The words swam before my eyes. My best friend. Maya. The girl who I thought was my rock. She hadn't just stood by. She had planned it. She had told him where to find my most precious work, how to hurt me the most. Make a big show of it. The words echoed, cold and sharp, in my head. The murmur in the hall grew louder, then exploded into gasps and whispers. I could hear someone shout, "No way," and another, "Maya." My gaze shot to Maya in the crowd. Her face was bloodless, her eyes wide, locked onto the screen. Brock, beside his parents, looked just as shocked, then a sudden, desperate anger flared in his eyes. He must have thought she was helping him, that she liked him. This is unacceptable. Mr. Holloway boomed from the front row. A setup. But I wasn't listening to him. The world around me felt fuzzy, distant. All I could see were Maya's words, her betrayal. My heart didn't just clench, it shattered. All those times she'd seemed to comfort me, to listen, to be my best friend, they were all lies. She had been the snake in the garden, planting seeds of hurt while pretending to offer shade. The unreliable narrator part slammed into me with brutal force. My story, my understanding of everything was wrong. It wasn't just Brock. It was Maya, my best friend, my deepest trust. I looked at Leo. He was staring at the screen, then at Maya, his face a mixture of confusion and shock. Was he in on it too? Did he know? The small spark of warmth I'd felt earlier, his good luck, now felt like a cruel joke, twisting in my gut. My support system, the fragile network I had just started to build outside my family, crumbled around me. "Nia, sweetie?" My mom's voice was a frantic whisper from below the stage. Robin stepped closer to me, her hand firm on my back, but even her strength felt far away. The noise in the hall was deafening now, a whirlwind of outrage and shock. Principal Hayes was yelling into the microphone, "Who put that up there? Take it down." But it stayed. And the words, Maya's words, stayed burned into my mind. Maya, seeing everyone looking at her, saw her world collapsing. She pushed through the crowd, crying, trying to run. But it was too late. The damage was done. My friendship with her, the one I thought was unbreakable, was gone, torn to shreds for everyone to see. I felt stripped bare, exposed. Not just by Brock's bullying, but by Maya's calculating cruelty. And Leo's silent stare felt like a judgment, a question I didn't know how to answer. The one person who was supposed to understand me, my confidant, was the one who lit the match. My hands began to shake violently. The microphone slipped. My speech, the one I'd poured my heart into, fluttered to the stage floor. It felt pointless now. How could I talk about standing up for myself when the very ground beneath me had just been ripped away by someone I loved? My art, my passion, which was supposed to be my voice, felt like a target now, a weakness that my own friend had used against me. I stood there, alone in the blinding spotlight, the deafening noise, and the crushing weight of betrayal. The hope, the strength I'd felt just moments before, evaporated into bitter ash. My fight suddenly felt impossible. What was the point of standing up if everyone around you was just waiting for a chance to push you down? I wanted to disappear, to vanish into the loud, judgmental air. All I had left was the fierce, protective presence of Robin beside me and my mom's worried face, a beacon in the blur. But even their love couldn't mend the gaping hole in my trust. The assembly, meant to be my triumph, had become my ultimate devastation. The world spun. Not like a blurry photo, but like a broken record, skipping over the same terrible words on the giant screen. Maya, don't worry, I know how to get her to show it. Make a big show of it. She'll hate that. The words, clear as day, burned into my vision. My throat closed up. My heart didn't just hurt, it felt like something had ripped through it, leaving a gaping, cold wound. The assembly hall erupted. Whispers turned to shouts, gasps, and angry murmurs. People were pointing. I felt their eyes, not just on the screen, but on me. And then on Maya. Her face, a moment ago bloodless, now crumpled. She tried to melt into the crowd, but it was too late. Everyone saw. Everyone knew. Brock's dad was still yelling about a setup, but his voice was just a buzz in my ears. All I could hear was Maya's text echoing. She'll hate that. Oh, how right she was. I hated it more than anything. I hated her. And I hated myself for ever trusting her. Robin was suddenly right beside me, her arm tight around my waist, pulling me closer. My mom was calling my name from below the stage, her voice tight with panic. But their sounds, their touch, felt far away, like I was underwater, watching everything from a distance. The microphone, cold and heavy, slipped from my fingers, clattering to the stage. My speech, the one I'd poured my tiny, shy voice into, floated down like a sad white bird. It meant nothing now. It was all a joke. I finally looked for Leo. He was still staring at the screen, then at Maya, then at me. His face was pale, his eyes wide. Was it shock? Guilt? Confusion? I didn't know. And I didn't care. The small, warm spark I'd felt earlier, his quiet nod, his mumbled, "You got this," now felt like a cruel trick. He was part of that world, that silent knowing, that place where people stood by and watched me get hurt. The ground beneath me wasn't just ripped away, it crumbled into dust. "Nia, we need to go." Robin's voice was firm, cutting through the haze. She was pulling me, gently but strongly, off the stage. My mom was already there, her arms wrapping around me, trying to pull me into her, to shield me. But there was no shield for this. No hiding from the jagged edges of betrayal that had just sliced through me. We walked out of the assembly hall, past the stunned, whispering faces. Some looked away, some stared openly, their eyes filled with pity, curiosity, or something I couldn't quite name. Each gaze was a fresh stab. I felt like a bug pinned under a magnifying glass, exposed and helpless. Maya was nowhere to be seen. Brock was still sitting there, his face a mask of anger and humiliation, but I couldn't bring myself to care about him. He was just a loud noise. Maya was a silent, crushing blow. The principal was shouting, trying to regain control, promising investigations and consequences. But all I wanted was to vanish, to disappear into thin air. The sleek black SUV was waiting. The ride home was silent, except for my mom's soft sniffles and Robin's deep, steady breaths. I stared out the window, watching the familiar streets blur past. Everything looked the same, but it wasn't. I wasn't. At home, the house was quiet, peaceful. Too peaceful. Robin gently led me to my room. She didn't try to talk much, just helped me change into comfortable clothes, her hands gentle on my shoulders. She brought me a mug of warm tea, but I couldn't even lift it. My hands were shaking too much. "It's okay not to be okay right now, sweetie," my mom said, sitting on the edge of my bed, stroking my hair. Her eyes were red. "We're here. We'll fix this." Fix this? How do you fix a heart that's been shattered into a million pieces? How do you unsee words that tell you your best friend, your trusted confidant, set you up to be publicly humiliated? I looked at my sketchbook, lying open on my desk. The colors, the lines, the worlds I'd poured into its pages now seemed dull, lifeless. My art, my voice. It had been my escape, my shield. Now it felt like a target, a weakness, something that had been used against me. Every stroke, every color, every imagined scene now felt tainted by Maya's calculating words. I picked up a pencil, my fingers trembling. I tried to draw, to escape into the lines, the shapes, the only place I knew how to find comfort. But nothing came. My mind was blank, filled only with the image of Maya's texts, the sound of the hall exploding, Leo's shocked face. The pencil felt heavy, foreign in my hand. It wasn't my voice anymore. It was just a tool for hurt. I closed my sketchbook, the soft thud sounding like a final goodbye. I couldn't do it. Not now. Maybe not ever again. Later, as the evening shadows stretched long and thin across my room, my phone buzzed. It was Leo. My breath hitched. I stared at the screen, the small glowing notification. His name, a moment ago a tiny spark of warmth, now felt like a brand, scorching my vision. Asterisk Leo, Nia, I am so sorry. I didn't know she would do that. I swear, asterisk. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could I even say? What was sorry worth when everything felt broken? When I had needed him, he hadn't been there. When he had seen the danger, he hadn't spoken up. Maybe he didn't know the exact plan, but he had known something. And that was enough to shatter what little trust one had left. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My stomach clenched, a sickening twist of anger and profound sadness. He wasn't the kind, quiet boy who saw me. He was just another person who let me down. Another silent watcher. I pushed my phone away, face down, silencing its endless demands. The silence in my room was suffocating. My family was just downstairs, but I felt miles away from them, from everyone. This wasn't just about Brock and his cruel words. This was about the insidious, quiet betrayal that had eaten away at me from the inside. A profound sense of despair settled over me, heavy and cold. It wasn't just that I had lost a friend. It was that I had lost my belief in friendship itself. I had opened up, just a tiny bit, and the world had responded by tearing me apart. My voice, my art, my trust, it all felt like a burden, something to be hidden, never shared. Robin came in a little while later, sitting on the edge of my bed. She didn't try to make me talk. She just sat there, her presence a solid anchor in my stormy sea. She held my hand, her fingers warm and strong. But even her unwavering strength couldn't reach the deepest part of me, the part that felt hollowed out and completely alone. The principal had said he would fix things. There would be meetings, consequences, maybe even Brock and Maya expelled. But none of that mattered. It wouldn't bring back the trust. It wouldn't mend the broken pieces of my heart. It wouldn't make me feel safe again. I had tried to stand up, to use my voice, to share my art. And the moment I did, the two people I had started to let in, Leo and Maya, were either gone or tainted. There was no way out. No path forward where I felt whole again. The future, which had just moments ago seemed full of light and possibility, stretched out before me as a dark, endless tunnel. My courage, that tiny flame I'd felt, flickered and died, leaving me in complete, utter darkness. It was all a trap. A painful, devastating trap. The silence in my room was a heavy blanket, thicker and colder than any night. It pressed in on me, pushing down on my chest until each breath felt like a struggle. The world outside, buzzing with whispers and the promise of consequences, felt miles away, a distant hum I couldn't connect to. All that was real was the gaping hole inside me, raw and bleeding from Maya's betrayal, from Leo's quiet inaction. My phone lay face down, a dark rectangle of forgotten noise. I didn't want to see it, Didn't want to hear it. Didn't want to be reminded of how easily everything I cherished could be twisted and used against me. My art, my voice, my trust. They were not shields, but exposed nerves, ready to be pricked and torn. A soft knock startled me, and then Robin pushed the door open, her tall figure a comforting shadow against the hall light. She didn't say anything right away, just walked over to the bed and sat down beside me, her weight making the mattress dip. She didn't try to talk, didn't try to cheer me up. She just sat there, her hand finding mine and squeezing gently, a solid, unwavering warmth in the cold vacuum of my despair. It was exactly what I needed, a silent understanding that spoke louder than any words. After a long minute, she just looked at me. "Your voice, Nia," she said, her voice soft but steady. "It's still yours. Nothing they did can take that away." I finally managed to shake my head, the movement feeling heavy and slow. "It's broken, Robin," I whispered, my voice rough and small. Everything. My art, my words, everything felt exposed. And then it was just torn apart. Why would I ever try again? It just makes me a bigger target. The idea of standing up again, of putting myself out there after such a public humiliation, twisted my stomach into knots. The fear wasn't just about Brock anymore. It was about the insidious, quiet cruelty from someone I thought was my friend. It was about the way people watched, silent and judging. It was about the vulnerability of hope itself. Robin listened, her eyes fixed on mine, not with pity, but with a deep, knowing sadness. "Because it's who you are, baby sister," she replied, her thumb stroking the back of my hand. "Your art, your quiet way of seeing the world, it's special. They attacked you because they didn't understand it, because they were small. But that doesn't make your gift small. It makes them small. And if you let them silence you, then they really win. They take away the most beautiful part of you." She paused, her gaze steady. "They want you to hide. Do you want to hide forever?" The question hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Hide forever? The thought made a new kind of dread rise in me. I had always been quiet, always found comfort in the shadows, but now it felt like a prison. To give up my art, to silence the voice that spoke in colors and lines, that was a terrifying thought. But to expose it again, to risk another shattering, another public tearing apart, that felt like an impossible choice. How could I rebuild when every foundation felt like sand? Every brushstroke, every pencil line, felt tainted by the memory of Maya's calculating words. My sketchbook, once a sanctuary, now felt like a weapon that had been turned on me. "But it hurts, Robin," I said, the words barely a whisper. "It hurts so much." I trusted her. And Leo, he just stood there. He knew something was wrong. They all just watched. The betrayal was a festering wound, making me question every gentle smile, every kind word I'd ever received. Was everyone just waiting for a chance to push me down? The world suddenly felt like a dangerous place, full of traps and false promises. My shy nature had always been a shield, but it had also been the thing that made me vulnerable to those who mistook quiet for weakness. Now, the idea of lowering that shield again felt like walking into a fire. "Yes, baby, it hurts," Robin said, her voice full of understanding. "And it's okay to feel that pain. But the hurt doesn't mean your art is less or your voice doesn't matter. It means you chose to be brave, and some people aren't ready for that. But your bravery is for you, Nia. Not for them. It's for the little girl inside you who wants to paint big, beautiful worlds. It's for the artist who needs to create to breathe. Don't let their ugliness steal your light." Just then, my mom came into the room, her eyes still red, but her face set with a fierce resolve. She came to the other side of the bed, pulling me into a soft hug, her scent of familiar comfort. "Your sister is right, sweetheart," Mom murmured, stroking my hair. "This isn't the end of your story. It's just a really hard chapter. But you're stronger than you think." Their love was a palpable force, a warm embrace that chipped away at the cold despair. But the choice still loomed. To retreat, to heal in silence, to perhaps never fully create again. Or to push through, to find a strength I didn't know I had, and face the world again, knowing the risks were still there. My fear was immense, a heavy chain around my heart. But underneath that fear, a tiny flicker of something else began to stir. A desperation. A desperation to reclaim myself. To not let them win. To not let their cruelty define my future. I closed my eyes, remembering the moment on stage, the raw humiliation. The microphone clattering, my speech floating down like a sad white bird. That bird, I realized, was me falling. But it wasn't dead. It was just stunned. What if I picked it up? What if I spoke, not to prove anything to Brock or Maya, but to honor the voice inside me that had always yearned to be heard? The one that poured out colors and dreams onto paper. The thought wasn't about revenge. It was about self-preservation. It was about standing up, not for external fame or even for trust, but for the very core of who I was. The ultimate fear wasn't failing. It was not trying at all, and letting my spirit wither away in silence. I opened my eyes and looked at Robin, then at my mom. "I can't read that speech again," I said, my voice still small, but a little firmer. "The one I wrote before. It feels fake now." It was a speech born of naive hope, a belief in fairness. Now I knew better. Now I knew the sharp edges of the world. But I still have something to say. The words felt heavy on my tongue, but they were my words, not just echoing what I thought others wanted to hear. My heart pounded, a frantic drum in my chest, but this time, it was a drumbeat of purpose, not just fear. A tiny, almost imperceptible shift happened inside me. The despair didn't vanish completely, but it receded, making space for something else. A quiet, burning resolve. This wasn't about the principal or the school or even Brock or Maya. This was about Nia. About showing myself that I wouldn't be silenced, not by bullies, not by betrayal, not by my own fear. It would be a different kind of victory, an internal one. It would mean shedding the last shred of my old, comfortable shyness, even if it meant feeling raw and exposed. That was the sacrifice, my illusion of safety. I reached for my sketchbook, my hands still trembling, but with a new tremor, one of nervous energy rather than defeat. I didn't open it to the pages filled with the vibrant landscapes or portraits I usually drew. Instead, I flipped to a blank page. The pencil felt familiar again, an extension of my thoughts. I wouldn't draw an escape. I would draw a truth. Maybe a simple symbol, a strong line, something that spoke of resilience. I didn't know what I would say or how I would say it, but I knew I would say something. My voice, my art, they were still mine. They were not broken. They were just waiting to be remade, stronger and truer, forged in the fires of betrayal and emerging with a new, quiet power. The future was still dark in places, but now I could see a tiny pinprick of light, and I realized it was me. The morning light felt different, not just shining through my window, but through something inside me too. The knot of dread in my stomach was still there, a tight ball of fear and hurt, but now a thin thread of something else was woven into it, a stubborn, fiery hope. Robin sat across from me at the kitchen table, sipping her tea, watching me with those calm, knowing eyes. Mom was bustling around, packing a small bag for me with water and a snack, acting like it was any other school day, but I could feel her nervous energy, a tremor just beneath her steady movements. My sketchbook lay open on the table. It wasn't the one with the destroyed pages. This was a new one, pages crisp and untouched until last night. I had worked through the early hours, not drawing an escape, but drawing the truth, just as I'd told Robin. My fingers traced the bold, simple lines I'd made, the mix of dark shadows and bright, hopeful bursts of color. It wasn't a speech I would read, it was a story I would show. A silent scream, now ready to be a defiant whisper. "Are you ready, baby sister?" Robin asked, her voice soft but strong. She reached across the table, taking my hand. Her touch grounded me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the frantic drumbeat in my chest. "I think so," I whispered, meeting her gaze. "It still feels scary." So scary." Mom came over, her arms wrapping around me in a tight hug. "It's okay to be scared, sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "It means you're doing something brave. We're right here with you." The drive to school was quiet, the air thick with unspoken worries and fierce love. When Robin's sleek black SUV pulled into the faculty parking lot, it wasn't just a car arriving. It was an event. Whispers started like a ripple in a pond, growing into a wave. Kids stopped in their tracks, jaws dropping, pointing. My heart hammered against my ribs, loud and insistent. I saw Brock from afar, standing with his football buddies, his usual smirk gone, replaced by a confused frown. Maya was there too, shrinking behind a group of girls, her eyes starting nervously. Leo was by himself, staring at the car, his face unreadable. I walked beside Robin, feeling small but also strangely tall. Her hand rested gently on my back, a constant reminder of her presence. The principal, Mr. Harrison, met us at the entrance, his face a mix of worry and awkwardness. He tried to act normal, but his eyes kept flicking to Robin, a superstar in our school hallway. The assembly hall buzzed with more energy than I'd ever felt there. Every seat was taken, and even the aisles had students standing, craning their necks. My art teacher, Mrs. Davies, gave me a warm, shaky smile from the front row. My stomach twisted with nausea. This was it. The moment I would step out of the shadows for real. Mr. Harrison, looking uncomfortable, introduced me. Students, we have a special assembly today. Nia Fenty has something important she wishes to share. He didn't mention Robin. He didn't have to. Everyone knew. My legs felt like jelly as I walked onto the stage. The microphone stand was still there, the ghost of my last attempt hovering over me. I didn't go to the microphone. Instead, I walked to the large screen behind me. Mrs. Davies had set up the projector. I held my new sketchbook, my hands trembling. I looked out at the sea of faces, at Brock's stunned expression, at Maya's downcast eyes, at Leo's watchful gaze. All of Northwood High was staring at me. I took another deep breath, picturing Robin and Mom in the front row, their faces full of belief. This wasn't for them, or for Brock, or for Maya. This was for me. I placed my sketchbook onto the special camera Mrs. Davies had prepared. The first image appeared on the screen, a simple, stark drawing of a quiet girl, her eyes wide, holding a bright, beautiful flower. But dark, shadowy hands reached out, tearing at the petals. It was me and my art and the bullying. I slowly turned the pages, each one a different drawing, a different part of my story. There was the image of my art portfolio, ripped and broken, ink bleeding like tears. There was a drawing of a shattered microphone, silent words falling to the floor like scattered glass. And then, there was a page depicting a girl, small and huddled, surrounded by shadows. But in her hands, a tiny, glowing seed. The hall was completely silent now. No whispers, no rustling, just the quiet click of my turning pages. I showed drawings of loneliness, of feeling unseen, of the pain of betrayal. There was Maya's face, not ugly or mean, but drawn with sadness and confusion, as if she too was trapped. There was Brock, his face a mask of anger, but with tiny, almost hidden lines of fear around his eyes. I wasn't trying to make them monsters. I was showing the pain that came from their actions, and the pain that might be driving them. Then a shift. I turned a page, and on the screen, the small seed in the girl's hands began to sprout. It pushed through the dirt, reaching for light. The colors in my drawings grew brighter, stronger. There was a drawing of hands, Robin's and Mom's, gently cradling the growing plant, shielding it. A visual of love, support, and resilience. Finally, I reached the last page. I paused, looking out at the faces again. Brock was slumped in his seat, his eyes fixed on the screen. Maya had tears streaming down her face. Leo looked up, meeting my gaze, and I saw a quiet apology there. I placed the final page under the camera. On the screen, the small plant had grown into a strong, beautiful tree, its branches reaching wide, its roots deep. And on each leaf, a single, simple word: empathy, kindness, courage, voice, hope. And at the very bottom, beneath the roots, was a stark, black silhouette of a microphone, now whole, no longer broken, but standing firm, a quiet strength. I removed my sketchbook. The images remained on the screen. I finally walked to the microphone, my hand no longer trembling. My voice, when it came out, was clear and steady, surprising even myself. I didn't want to read a speech today, I said, the words echoing through the silent hall. My art has always been my voice. And my art tells you that words can hurt, actions can break, and silence can be a lonely prison. I paused, letting that sink in. My eyes swept across the faces again. But my art also tells you that words can heal, actions can build, and finding your voice, even if it's just a whisper, can set you free. I looked at Brock directly, then at Maya, then at the whole student body. I don't want anyone to be silenced like I was. I don't want anyone to feel alone or broken. Not by bullies and not by friends. A collective sigh seemed to ripple through the crowd. I felt the surge of emotion, a powerful wave of connection. This was it. This was the moment for the twist, for the collective victory. So, I continued, my voice growing stronger. I'm not asking for punishment. I'm asking for change. My next words dropped like stones into the quiet hall, creating a new kind of ripple. I believe every student at Northwood High deserves to feel safe, deserves to have their voice heard. So, I've been working with Mrs. Davies and Mr. Harrison, and with my sister, Robin, who believes in giving everyone a chance to express themselves. I gestured to the screen, where now, beside my tree of words, a simple title appeared, the Northwood Art and Voice Initiative. This isn't just about my story, I said, a smile finally gracing my lips, genuine and unforced. It's about our stories. It's about creating a space where every student can share their art, their writing, their music, whatever their voice is, without fear. A place where we learn empathy and where we support each other. I want Northwood to be known for its kindness, not its cruelty. The room erupted. It wasn't just polite applause, it was a roaring wave of cheers, of students standing up, clapping, some wiping tears from their eyes. Robin was beaming, Mom was openly crying tears of joy. Mrs. Davies was clapping wildly. Brock sat, frozen, his face a mixture of shock, shame, and maybe, just maybe, a flicker of understanding. Maya was openly weeping, but now, instead of hiding, she was looking at me, a desperate plea in her eyes. Leo was on his feet, clapping harder than anyone, a look of profound relief washing over his face. The twist wasn't a celebrity scolding. It wasn't a dramatic expulsion. It was an invitation, an opportunity, a chance for everyone to build something better together. My victory wasn't just my own. It was for every quiet kid, every artist, every person who felt like they didn't have a voice. I had stood up, not just for myself, but for the entire community, proving that true power didn't come from external fame, but from the quiet strength of one girl's voice, speaking truth and igniting a movement for a kinder world. It was a choice to build, not just to break. And in that moment, as the cheers washed over me, I realized that my own fear had finally shattered, replaced by an overwhelming, liberating sense of triumph. The roaring cheers washed over me, a physical warmth that spread from my toes to the top of my head. It wasn't just noise, it was a symphony of relief and support. My knees, which had felt like liquid just moments ago, now felt firm beneath me. I stood at the microphone, taking in the sea of faces, no longer small or hidden, but seen, truly seen, for the first time. Robin was the first one to reach me on stage, pulling me into a hug that squeezed all the remaining nervousness out of me. Her embrace was tight, strong, and full of unspoken pride. "You did it, baby girl," she whispered, her voice rough with emotion. "You did it." Then Mom was there too, her face wet with tears, but her smile was the brightest thing in the whole room. She held us both, a tight family circle in the middle of a noisy, cheering hall. Mrs. Davies joined us, her eyes sparkling. "Nia," she choked out, "I am so incredibly proud of you." It felt like a dream, but the cheers were real, the hugs were real, and the weight that had been on my chest for so long was finally gone. As the crowd started to thin, still buzzing with excitement, I saw Brock. He wasn't with his friends anymore. He was standing alone by the exit, his shoulders slumped, his eyes on the floor. He didn't look up as I caught his gaze, but I saw the dark flush on his neck. No anger, no smirk, just a kind of heavy quiet. I didn't feel a need to confront him or to make him feel worse. The words I had spoken were about change, not about revenge. My art had spoken my truth, and his reaction was his to carry. I just nodded, a small, knowing nod, and then turned away. He didn't deserve any more of my energy. Maya was different. She hadn't left. She was standing by the stage, her face blotchy, tears still tracking through her makeup. When her eyes met mine, the desperate plea was still there, but mixed with something else, raw shame. I felt a pang in my chest, a dull ache where our friendship used to be. I walked towards her, my heart beating a little faster. "Nia," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I am so sorry. I should have done something. I was so scared. So stupid." Her words tumbled out, fast and broken. She reached out, as if to touch me, then pulled her hand back, unsure. I looked at her, really looked at her. The anger was still there, a tiny ember deep inside me, but it was mixed with pity. I remembered the drawing of her, sad and confused, trapped. "You were my friend, Maya," I said, my voice soft but steady. That hurt more than anything Brock did. "Because I thought you knew me. I thought you saw me." Her lower lip trembled. I know I messed up. I didn't mean to. I just got scared of losing my place. Of not being popular anymore. It was stupid. You were always so much cooler, so much more talented than me, even if you were quiet. And Brock, he made me feel like I had to choose. It wasn't a full excuse, but it was an explanation. It wasn't enough to erase the hurt, but it was a start. "I can't just forget it, Maya," I told her honestly. "Not right away. But I believe in second chances. I believe in change." That's what I said, right? She nodded, tears welling up again. Can we try? To be friends again?" I hesitated. The truth was, I wasn't sure. The trust was broken, like shattered glass. It would take a long time to put it back together, if it ever could be. But I also knew what it felt like to be alone. "We can try," I said, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. "But it has to be different. Real. No more hiding. No more choosing popularity over kindness." Maya nodded quickly, relief washing over her face. "Yes. Anything. Thank you, Nia." She didn't hug me, didn't try to pretend everything was fixed, and I appreciated that. It was a new beginning, a fragile one, but it was something. Just then, Leo walked up, a wide, relieved smile on his face. He didn't say anything, just gave me a thumbs up. His eyes, usually so serious, were full of open admiration. "That was amazing, Nia," he finally managed. "You were so brave." I smiled at him, a genuine, easy smile that reached my eyes. "Thanks, Leo. For everything." He had been my quiet strength, my one true friend through it all. Our friendship was solid, unbroken. That felt good. The days that followed the assembly were a whirlwind. The Northwood Art and Voice Initiative took off faster than anyone expected. Mrs. Davies and I, with Mr. Harrison's help and Robin's generous support, started setting up workshops. We had a dedicated space in the art room, open after school, for students to come and share whatever they wanted: poetry, songs, drawings, even just their thoughts. It became a safe haven, a buzzing hive of creativity. I helped organize, helped set up, and most importantly, I listened. I heard stories from kids who had felt just like me, unseen, unheard, sometimes picked on for being different. But now they had a place to tell their stories and people who listened. The atmosphere in the school shifted. The loud voices still existed, but the quiet ones had found their power. Sometimes, walking through the halls, I'd still see Brock. He never tried to talk to me, and I never sought him out. He seemed to have shrunk, his boisterous confidence replaced by a quieter, more subdued presence. He still played football, but the swagger was gone. I knew he was watching. I knew the lesson had sunk in, even if it was a painful one. It wasn't about his punishment, it was about the change he saw, the change I had helped create. And for Maya, she started joining the art and voice workshops. She wasn't just sketching, she was writing little stories about her feelings, about what it was like to feel lost and then find a way back. It was slow, sometimes awkward, but it was real. We didn't sit together all the time, and our friendship was definitely different, but there was a quiet understanding that we were both trying. My own art changed too. I still drew in my sketchbook, but now I often drew the other students, their faces bright with newfound courage, their hands busy creating. My art wasn't just a shield anymore. It was a bridge. It connected me to others. It was a way to celebrate voices, including my own. One afternoon, I sat in the newly revamped art room, a shaft of sunlight cutting across my page. My sketchbook was open, and I was drawing a girl. Not a small, huddled girl in shadows, but a girl standing tall, holding a microphone. And from the microphone, instead of sound, intricate, beautiful lines of color flowed out, twisting and turning, forming pictures. She wasn't alone. Other figures stood around her, holding their own creations, their own colors weaving into hers. It was an explosion of art and voice. I felt a profound sense of peace. The girl in the drawing looked like me, but it was also every student who had found their courage, their voice. The quiet whisper of my art had grown into a chorus. I still loved my quiet moments, my sketchbooks, but I no longer used them to hide. I used them to speak, to connect. Robin visited often, not as the global superstar, but as my sister. She'd sit with me, watching the kids create, her eyes soft with pride. "You know, Nia," she said one day, watching me draw, "this is bigger than just Northwood High. What you started here, it's a ripple. It's going to inspire so many more." She smiled, a knowing glint in her eye. "Don't ever forget the power of your quiet strength, baby girl. It's a force all its own." I smiled back, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with fame and everything to do with purpose. My artistic journey was just beginning. And now I wasn't just dreaming of a future where my art spoke louder than words. I was building it, one drawing, one shared story, one act of kindness at a time. It felt like coming home to myself finally. Whole, powerful, free. What did this story teach you about finding your voice? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world.